The unseen watcher. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my front door creaking open. My heart immediately started racing because I was alone in the house. My roommates were out of town. I grabbed my phone and quietly slid out of bed, trying not to make a sound. The floorboards creaked under my feet as I crept towards the hallway, each step echoing eerily in the silence of the house. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. I had definitely locked the door before going to bed. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard it, a faint whisper. Someone was in my house. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead as I peered down into the darkness of the living room. There was no way I was going down there, but I had to see who it was. I crouched by the banister, trying to get a better view. The moonlight cast long shadows across the room, and that's when I saw it, a figure standing by the front door. Tall, dark, and motionless. My stomach dropped. I couldn't make out any features, just the outline of a person. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but I was frozen with fear. My phone was in my hand, but the thought of calling 911 didn't even occur to me. Instead, I slowly backed away from the stairs, heading towards my bedroom. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, and coming up the stairs. I bolted into my room, quietly closing the door behind me. I leaned against it, my ear pressed to the wood, trying to hear any sign of the intruder. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, terrified that even the sound of my breathing would give me away. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat louder than the last. And then, the doorknob started to turn. I stumbled back, my eyes wide with fear. The door creaked open, and I could see a hand wrapped around the edge, pushing it slowly. Just as I was about to scream, my phone buzzed loudly in my hand. The sudden noise made me jump, and I dropped it. The figure froze, the hand retreating from the door. I quickly picked up my phone, my fingers shaking as I tried to see who was calling. It was an unknown number. Before I could answer, the door swung open fully, and there he was, a man, dressed in all black, his face obscured by a hood. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, just staring at me. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back down the stairs. I rushed to lock the door behind him, my entire body trembling. I called 911, barely able to get the words out to the operator. When the police arrived, the front door was wide open, but there was no sign of the intruder. They told me I was lucky, that he was probably a burglar who got scared off. But I knew better. That wasn't just a random break-in. He knew I was there. He wanted me to know he could get to me anytime he wanted. And the worst part? I still don't know who he was or what he wanted. The next day, after the police had left, I called my friends and told them what had happened. I said they needed to come back immediately, but I knew they were on vacation and didn't want to ruin their trip. Luckily, a friend who lived nearby came over and stayed with me that night. But even with her there, I couldn't sleep, hearing every little sound and thinking he was coming back. Days passed, but the fear lingered. Every time I came home, I checked the door, double-checked the windows to make sure they were locked. I felt like there was something in every shadow, like someone was constantly watching me. One night, when my roommates finally returned, we sat down and talked about it again. They were just as worried as I was, but the police had found nothing. There was no trace of the intruder in the house. Even the security camera hadn't worked that night, as if someone had specifically sabotaged it. This made everything even more unsettling. I couldn't sleep at night, jumping at every little noise. A week later, I heard the whisper again. This time it was clearer and definitely inside the house. I had a moment of pure terror, but this time I acted immediately. I jumped up, grabbed my phone, and called the police. This time I didn't stay quiet, I screamed. The police arrived quickly, searching every corner of the house, but again found nothing. This time my roommates were home, and we were all thoroughly shaken. Someone was watching us, but we couldn't figure out who. The police told us they would patrol the area more frequently and do everything they could to ensure our safety. For a while, we felt a bit more at ease, but it didn't last long. One night, as I was heading back to my room, I saw someone standing by the window. It was the third time I'd seen him, and this time it was clearer. He was dressed in black again, his face hidden in the shadows. But this time he didn't run. He looked me in the eye and smiled coldly. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I immediately called the police again, but the man was gone by the time they arrived. Now I was truly terrified. None of us wanted to be alone in the house, and we constantly stayed together. One night, while we were all sitting together, we noticed a note slipped under the door. The note simply read, "I'm watching you." This had gone too far. The police took the note and sent it for analysis, but again, they found nothing. I didn't want to stay in the house anymore, but where could I go? I had to continue with my daily life, university, work, everything. But in the back of my mind, this person was always there. One night, exhausted from everything, I was sitting in my room studying. Suddenly, I heard a tapping at my window. When I pulled the curtain aside, I saw him again. This time he was trying to break the window. I quickly locked the door and called the police. The man was trying to get inside. Those moments felt like an eternity before the police arrived. The man couldn't break the window and ran away. The police searched the area, but again, found nothing. Now there was only one solution left: moving out. We sat down and talked, and finally, all of us decided to leave the house. Moving wasn't easy, but it was the only way to ensure our safety. We found a new place and increased our security measures. Alarm systems, cameras, everything was installed. At first, I was still anxious in the new house. I listened to every little noise, checked every shadow. But over time, I convinced myself that he wouldn't find us. The first few weeks in the new house passed without incident. I started to feel safer, but I remained vigilant. One night, while I was out with my old roommates, I got a call. The number was unknown again. When I answered, I heard that familiar whisper. "I will find you," it said. I immediately hung up and called the police. The police tried to trace the call, but this person always managed to cover his tracks. As days went by, I became more paranoid. I felt like he was watching me everywhere, every moment. But this time, with the support of my friends, I was determined to get through it. We increased our security measures even more, and the peace in the house gradually returned. But every night before I went to bed, I made sure to check the doors and windows. The shadow of that man still lingered in my mind, but at least now I felt more prepared. One day, unexpectedly, I found an envelope in the mailbox. There was no address on it, just my name. When I opened the envelope, I found a photo. It was taken in front of our old house, with me and my friends sitting outside. In the background, a dark figure was watching us intently. On the back of the photo, there was only one word: soon. This put me on high alert again. But this time, with the help of the police and my friends, we were determined to catch him. I reported every little detail to the police, took every step carefully. And finally, one night, unexpectedly, we caught him. While he was lurking outside our house, the police used security cameras to track him and arrested him. When I saw his face, he was a stranger. We had no connection, he was just someone with psychological issues. His arrest lifted a huge weight off our shoulders. After that incident, we slowly returned to our normal lives. But that fear, that paranoia, still lingers somewhere deep inside. I'm more cautious now, more prepared. But every night before I go to bed, I can't forget that dark shadow. This story taught me one thing: never feel completely safe. Always be cautious. Because the darkness might be watching you at any moment.